Ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor and privilege to introduce you two amazing presenters that have an awesome experience to share with you. I give you this time the presentation from Mr. Troy and Victor. All right, give them a hand if you can.
Where the theme music at? Theme music. Theme music. The Rocky. Welcome, everyone. Like Mr. Derek said, we'll be talking about practical strategies for engaging fathers. So everything we're going to discuss, once you leave this room, you'll be able to put it into practice. So my name is Troy Walker, and we work for West Care, Nevada. I am the Assistant Director of Harris Springs Ranch, which is our men's residential substance abuse facility, as well as Program Manager for Connections Fatherhood Fire. And through our Fatherhood Fire program, we serve fathers that are, one, based in our residential men's facility, as well as the North Las Vegas jail. So we do both reentry and community. And this is Mr. Victor, who is one of my case managers / facilitators. So to set the stage, there's a lot of intersecting issues that fathers face. And a lot of the fathers that we work with, they face, criminal justice, and they face substance use issues. And most importantly, economic issues as well. One of the criteria for our program is you have to have low income economically. And a lot of the traditional approaches that exist in the field, they overlook all of the issues that fathers face. And instead of being proactive or moving with the fathers to address, the different situations that they experience, everything is based on research, which not saying research is not valuable, but research takes a while for research to kind of prove the evidence. And so a lot of the programs that we see, it's about 4 or 5 years before they catch up to what I would consider innovative and modern approaches. And so with that, we need transformative strategies that honor lived experience and create real change. So what we're going to cover is understanding intersectionality. We are going to implement the DRT framework, which stands for Disrupt, Reform, and Transform. And we're going to promote holistic support. So a lot of the things that we'll talk about today are actual strategies that we've implemented in our program, and that we've also helped similar programs in the Clark County, Nevada area implement as well. So intersectionality. So fathers' lives are shaped by so many different factors. And specific to our populations, their lives are shaped by mental health and substance use primarily. One, because most of our men are either incarcerated or they're in residential substance abuse treatment. Their lives are also shaped by economic pressures and legal involvement. So most of our fathers, they have open child support cases, or they have extensive criminal backgrounds because they've, had to do whatever they had to do in order to provide for their families. A lot of our fathers don't even know what it means to really be a father because they've never had that. And so a lot of what we do is really breaking down what intersectionality means to the fathers so that they can understand that, all these different factors, that you've experienced throughout your life, it all means something. And it all has shaped how you got here today. And so when we talk about intersectionality, I always like to think about a street intersection because this is just one example of what we've experienced, what we see in our program. However, there's so many different other factors that can shape what intersectionality looks like. So whereas ours only has 4 signs, someone else's might have 8 or 10. So some of the things the research says is 70% of men in treatment have significant trauma histories. So in our residential program, one of the things that we screen for, or one of the tools that we have every father participate in, is the cross-cutting measure that measures, anxiety, depression, some other mental health symptoms that they experience. And a lot of our fathers score high on that. Over 50% of incarcerated fathers were primary breadwinners pre-incarceration. So a lot of our fathers, they are responsible for their families. And I don't just mean responsible for their children, but responsible for their mothers, their cousins, their uncles, just extended family, whatever that looks like to them. And so while they are incarcerated or while they're in treatment, this is their focus. And so our work begins from the time they walk in the door, because how can you participate in treatment or rehabilitate yourself if you're worried about how your family is going to survive without you? And then third, holistic integrated care significantly reduces recidivism and relapse. So one of the things that how we model our work is we utilize SAMHSA's 6 dimensions. Why? Because we're a substance abuse agency. But if we look at those 6 dimensions, they address pretty much every area of life. And so we believe in operating in an ecosystem rather than recreating the wheel. So what intersecting barriers have you seen most in the fathers that you all serve? Yes, ma'am. Employment? Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay, so adequate income. Hold on one second, sir. Legal status? Can you talk a little bit more about that? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. Immigration is, one of the biggest factors that we've experienced with WestCare, because we also have fathers that have fled from Cuba or from any one of the other South America countries. Hmm. So you got your hand up.
I've had, people that, the barrier is they are here illegally. They're scared to be observed because of everything that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So I have had just the past 2 months, I've had 3 different clients that needed the service, but they didn't take the service. And I believe that is kind of, they're scared to draw any attention. But, but my thing was, limited healthcare, because a lot of them don't have the ability, and what she said with income, they don't have the ability to afford the insurance, and so they're not able to qualify to get like the Medicaid or something like that. And but then they're stuck because they don't make enough to afford it, but then they make too much to be able to purchase or to get it from the state.
Absolutely.
So, just imagine as just feel how hard it is for a human being to be in a place that's called illegal just because you're trying to survive. Because just that embraces the entire challenges that these folks day to day.
Thank you for that. And one of the things that we really teach in our workshops and throughout our program is language matters. And so even when it comes down to, what do you call your co-parent? We recently had a discussion in one of our workshops where some participants, they did not like the word co-parenting. And really breaking down, the history of where did baby mama come from? And what are you really conveying to people? Yes, ma'am.
I provided mental health assessments and pre-sentencing investigations for the state of Maryland for 12 years. And one of the barriers that I thought was really just compelling. So now I'm assessing men's mental health, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you had a conviction, if you were a convicted felon, you no longer had access, or in this area, you no longer have access to public housing. And so suddenly now they've got housing instability, and they're trying to, maintain their mental health status without housing instability. Where can they interact with their children?
Mm-hmm.
Because they have and so I no longer do that work, but I find it particularly frustrating that the felon who is the president of the United States doesn't have to worry about housing stability. So we have a whole community where the laws are set.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, sir.
In the cross section of dealing with, like her, supported people that are dealing with mental health challenges and being assessed, substance abuse, and those that are incarcerated, depending on their length of sobriety, their concept of how they self-identify is often through the lens of their guilt. Once they've registered, but before if it's not a certain amount of time, they haven't registered a lot of empathy.
Mm-hmm.
Because of whatever substances they're working through, particularly with opioids, or for men who are incarcerated that are just getting to the point that they're focusing on wanting to be outside for reasons other than just wanting to be back on the other side of the bars. And so it's this redemptive guilt that keeps coming up, and trying to help them self-identify beyond their experiences. Not only the experience in the lens of the guilt of what they carry. I see that across all three of those populations. And it's particularly difficult when it's a person who's dealing with all three.
Absolutely.
Mental health issues and they've been incarcerated.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
So glad that this question was asked. Because I'm gonna speak on my experience when I came home in 2008, 14 year of bid. The barrier is
we don't know where to go, to look for jobs, mental health. But legal, like as she said, like legal assistance, legal consulting. So I came home and I just didn't know where to go. Like who's hiring? Like who's hiring felonies?
Right.
I need medical. I need to go get myself checked out. But I'm put in a place now that disturbed me so much when I came home that I didn't have none of this stuff. So now I'm in a position that when men come home, they come to me. I'm a community health worker and I'm a drug consultant. So I help people with opioids, addiction. I get them into treatment. I give them treatment. I get housing. I help people get their SNAP turned back on, help them get back in touch with their children. I take them to appointments. Even when I came home, the first job that I had, I couldn't get life insurance because I had a felony. I never knew that. I called them like, hey, I want to do like $100,000 life insurance. They ran it. They was like, oh, were you incarcerated? I'm like, yeah. So oh, you gotta wait 5 years to get life insurance. I said, wait, what? Called another life insurance company. They told me I had to wait 10 years to get life. This is true. I live in Connecticut. This is true history. I said, wow.
It's a serious barrier to generational wealth.
Wow. So, and God's going to thank God that the job that I have now, I got great life insurance. I got 2 life insurance policies. But even just to get life insurance to take care of your family is another barrier that I never knew nothing about until COVID came and then I lost my job and I'm like, I wanted to keep my life insurance though. So I'm going to keep paying for it. So I stopped looking for other life insurance. They were like, oh, you got a felony, you got to wait. Well, how long you been home? I'm like, you've been like 4 or 5 years. Like, another 5, you can call us back. And I'm like, wow. So, it's just having the resources. We don't know, a lot of people don't have resources. They don't know the resources. They don't know who to go to. And that's a big barrier. So I think if there's more information out there, some people that come home from jail, they're like scared to even ask for, help because they're shunned upon. I signed up for it when I first came home. I went to Foxwoods Casino, did my whole application. And again, they looked at it. They was like, oh, I had a record on there. They was like, oh, you just come back in 5 years and reapply. Wait till this is like back, geez. So it's just that barrier too, embarrassment, the people get embarrassed, but it's really the resource. We don't know a lot of people don't know resources and a lot of people are actually holding on to resources.
Right.
They don't let you know. I found out so much. I educated myself that I can help any person who gets out of jail today. I'm with NAACP. We have a 2 million job association that we help inmates get jobs. So and I make sure I put it out there. I'm in the jails passing out pamphlets like, hey, maybe come home and I got you. I can get you a job for real. I can get you a job. I'm getting people in hospitals, EB, electric boat building, submarine. So it's just a resource. I don't want to take too much up.
To some good conversation today. Anyone else? Okay. So the DRT framework, once again, it stands for disrupt, reform, and transform. So this is a framework that we've been using in our program for about 2 years now. And in my opinion, this is one of the most essential frameworks that you can use. 1, because I created it. 2, specifically because what we do is dismantle what needs to be dismantled. We don't just go in and change things, we demolish the whole building. And so first thing we start with is disrupt. We disrupt harmful practices and language that alienates fathers. So going back to what the young lady said about, illegal. We first teach fathers who they are. And unless you know who you are, you can't know who someone else is. So a lot of the issues that our fathers deal with as far as the instability, as far as the co-parenting issues, the not being present for their children issues, all of these things, we want to address the root cause. And there's a lot of root causes, but the first one we want to address is helping them know themselves. And then we reform programs to put the father in the center. Because generally speaking, social service programs, human service programs, whatever you want to call them, we have these lofty ideas where we want to change the world. We want to create, these lovely programs with all these acronyms to make your life better. But how can we make your life better without consulting you? And then the last thing we do is transform services into spaces that heal, that empower, and that liberate. And most importantly, that create sustainable change. So this is kind of what the method or the process looks like. Disrupt, reform, transform. And the reformation process is probably the most difficult. And that's because you need buy-in. It's easy to dismantle a system, but when you want to rebuild it, you have to rebuild it strategically. And so real world application. So the old way of human services is what brings you here. And what we do is we use motivational interviewing. We use all different types of language to change the focus to being, you have this problem, how do we address this problem? But who are you? And how do we help you? And one of those questions is, what matters most to you as a father right now? We don't want to just hint around at, issues or just operate as if you're only a number to us, you're only a dollar amount to us, but we want to get to know who you are as a person. And we want to do what we can to help you change, whatever that looks like. And so one of the things that we do is we're trauma informed and we believe in operating holistically. And so what that looks like is a lot of emotional regulation, not only training, but skill teaching. If you don't have emotional intelligence, how can you survive in this world? And if you don't have emotional literacy, it makes it difficult for you to be able to connect to others, especially children nowadays. And trauma-informed language and spaces. There's so much trauma that people have experienced that we just kind of glaze over and don't take into consideration. And economically, I would argue that that's one of the biggest sources of trauma. And we believe that economic empowerment is a pathway to stability. So we partner with an organization called Hope for Prisoners. We partner with an organization called Foundation for an Independent Tomorrow. And both of these organizations provide job training free. They provide case management services free. And so we've had clients go through there that have ended up getting CDL training for free, becoming on the road truck drivers. What else? Welders, culinary, mechanics, just the whole gamut. And the way that we went about that is developing a partnership with them. If I know who not only your organization is, but if I know who you are within your organization, we then can have a conversation to where we can help clients. Because if we're grant funded, which we are, we have a certain number of individuals that we need to serve. If you're grant funded, which they are, you also have a certain number of individuals that you need to serve. So how can we work together to make sure the people in this community get what they need to get? And then peer mentorship and culturally resonant practices. So we use closed cohort models. And so a lot of our cohorts end up taking on peer roles to the cohorts that come after them. And they just do that organically. And so what we've started doing is fostering that and really helping for them to develop a peer group amongst themselves, to where if one falls, they all fall. But if one succeeds, they all succeed. And we've had a few clients where they've ended up knowing somebody who maybe had a flagging company, and they were able to get, I think it was about 10 of their peers jobs. And so it's really, like you said, young brother, is knowing what resources is out there and bringing that to the table. Because it ain't about us, it's about what do you all need. And so these are some of the core values that we model. Safety. If y'all familiar with the Within My Reach curriculum, we use the 4 safeties, or the 4 components of safety: emotional, community, physical, and commitment. Thank you. And we believe in creating safe spaces for, the fathers that we serve. Because if we make this connection with you and in some way, some fashion, we harm that connection, that's going to turn you off to all services. And so we don't want to, be another system that let fathers down. And then we believe in trustworthiness. If we say something, we have to do it. We're not just here running our mouths. We're here actually walking the walk. And I can say everybody within our program has lived experience in one way or another. And choice. We don't decide what our clients will do, but we have a conversation with them. We dialogue about it. What does, a perfect life look like for you? How can we help you achieve that? And that's done with collaboration and empowerment. If we don't empower them, all we're doing is giving them the fish instead of teaching them how to fish. And so when the next day comes, what are they going to do? They're going to end up starving, because instead of giving them the tools that they need, we just put a Band-Aid on a wound. Absolutely. And so when we talk about emotional intelligence, fathers need safe spaces to express emotion and vulnerability. So outside of this, I am an alcohol and drug counselor. And so I do a lot of groups with some of the fathers that we serve. And one of the things that I try to impart on them is you have the pen to your life story. Use it. Don't let no one take it from you. Because if you control your story, if you control your narrative, there's nothing anybody can do to make you feel any type of way about that, because you own it. And then there is strength in vulnerability, because when you can be vulnerable, when you can own whatever has occurred in your life, when you can walk comfortably in that, you have the power. And not only do you have the power, but you have the opportunity to affect change in so many other different spaces. And staff must model emotional openness first. And so within our program, there's plenty of times where we will go to lunch, we will go, like one of my staff may have a client that they need to go see. However, we'll all go just so that we can continue building the structure that we have, building the relationships that we have, because it's not easy doing this work. And so if we have like-minded people that are doing the same thing to lean on, that makes the work easier. And emotional literacy is a skill that can be taught and nurtured. And so we do a lot of that with the clients that we serve. One of my favorite questions is why? You know, why are you feeling the way you do? Well, why are you thinking that way? And by asking why, sometimes it gets on their nerves, but we can get to the crux of whatever the issue is. Or you just may see a different perspective. Economic empowerment. This is essential to father engagement and family healing. If you can't put no bread on the table, your family ain't gonna eat. And this has to take place as what I call vision work. Fathers need help in defining what financial well-being means to them. If you grew up in a family where, I don't know, maybe you had a big mama and most of the time you probably just ate fat back, or I'm from the South, so. But you didn't have the luxury or the opportunity to eat full meals. And so where would you learn how to cook outside of that? Where would you learn how to, have financial literacy, to save? Life insurance. A lot of people don't know, like you said, life insurance can create generational wealth. But a lot of people are unaware of that because that was never taught. And so historically, we model what has been modeled before us. Father-led financial goals build trust and agency. So we help fathers not only learn how to budget, not only learn, what skills they need to make them employable, but also how to maintain that. Because a lot of our fathers, one, having substance abuse issues, having mental health issues, some being incarcerated, when they see, their first check is probably $400 and they can go make that in an hour somewhere else, their mind starts wandering. So what is it that we need to do in order to have them hold on to the hope that this is just the beginning?
Getting fast money. And that has to come, because, when we're working with, and I work with returning citizens, and I am one myself, and they, not all of them, but a good number of them are accustomed to street hustle, getting money fast. And deep down, they really don't want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't have the tools and information to do something different. When we talk about financial literacy, they've been used to either keeping cash on them in a box or going to the check cashing place, paying an astronomical fee. So we have to bring in experts from financial institutions to teach them how to budget, and understanding that, hey, you can't go to a bank, you can't go to a credit union, but also connecting hey, I get it, cause you're hungry today. We'll be talking about the future, hey, everything gonna be all right later. But we gotta tie it all to the consequences. Consequences at some point don't resonate, then we'll still continue to have that problem. So we gotta tie that together. Hey, what does that really look like when you go back out and hustle? What's the outcomes? You already know, jails and institutions. But if we teach you something different and let you know that you gotta be patient, it's gonna happen over a period of time with consistency. That even though we got a great program, 4 weeks, I can't fix nobody in 4 weeks that just did 25 years. Okay, but I gotta stay with them after that and be consistent along the way. They look at me and they say, wow, I wanna be like you, Mr. Quinn. Well, this is 30 years of being, being back out here in the community. Didn't happen overnight. So, and just speaking the truth.
Absolutely.
Individuals and not building this fantasy fairy tale type situation that, hey, yeah, you can do it, but you can, but hey, it's gonna take some work. Gotta emphasize it's gonna take work. You might falter a little bit, you might fall, things might not come out like you want to all the time, but you gotta stay with it. And at some point you'll look up and you'll see your life change. But that's sometimes that's tough. Telling somebody, oh, look, just hold on, man, it's gonna be all right. And they're hungry right now.
Absolutely.
Hey, you talking about something way down in the future that may or may not happen. Hey, that's tough, man, especially when you got brothers, brothers primarily, that's what we talking about, that come from a certain environment, man.
Right.
And you gotta tell them that everything gonna be peachy and rosy. And they hungry and they really want to do something, they really want to do the right thing. Vast majority of the guys I work with want to do the right thing. You go, you run into that barrier, you talking about barriers earlier, you're doing the right thing, you following the program, you go out, apply for a job, they interview you or they think you're great until they get to your background.
Mr. Quinn, I'm gonna have to interrupt.
I'm sorry.
No, it's just so he can paraphrase, because you're spitting a lot of great facts. Just want to make sure our virtual audience also catches some.
Oh, okay,
as
I'm
well.
sorry.
No, you're good. So I just want to make sure that when you respond, like what makes sense to you, what Mr. Quinn just shared with the Troy.
Yeah, I'm
That
sorry.
way they can hear it online as well.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're good.
I got you. So one of the things that one of the successes that we've seen in that area of economic empowerment is we're co-located where our clients are. So I like to consider it a fatherhood penthouse in a trailer. But Monday through Friday, from about 7 a.m. to 5 p.m., the fathers are able to come literally next door and come talk to us, come get resources, come let us know how they're doing, if they're having any struggles, what successes they're having, all of that. So that has helped keep a lot of our fathers on the right track and help give them hope. And we've been co-located with them for about a year. Prior to that, we weren't as engaged with them, and retention was an issue, connection was an issue, but now we're able to see our fathers even years later because we've built that, not only that foundation, but we've built that connection. So best practices and takeaway strategies: father-led circles and peer-based mentoring. Peer-based mentoring is one of the things I like the most because fathers are the experts. And so what we do is we put all the experts together and allow them to, use their lived experience to talk about issues, to talk about what needs to be done, strategies, what worked for them, what didn't work, all of these things. And from the conversations that they have, we as staff learn a lot. And narrative storytelling and cultural practices, that's very important because hearing some of the father's narratives, it's life changing. We just had one father who he is about 30 years old. Milo. He's about 30 years old, spent 10 years in a federal prison. And to see who he was to who he is now, and I'm not talking who he was, before he went to prison, but who he was when he started our program to who he is now. His language has changed. His movements, his behaviors have changed. And just to see the impact of what 5 weeks roughly has done, I'm interested in seeing what 6 months, a year from now, what the impact will look like. Emotional literacy and trauma-informed activities. A lot of our fathers who have experienced all sorts of trauma, they don't want to deal with it, which is why they turn to substances. And what we do is we encourage them to talk about it, to get it out somehow. Whether, that's through listening to music, that's through painting, through, whatever medium that they want to use. One of the ways that I typically start up groups is I'll play a song. Most recently, I played a Kendrick Lamar song to open up group off of his GNX album. And the lyrics resonated with each father. And it was about, I deserve it all. That was basically the whole message. And that offered the fathers hope. It inspired them that despite everything that you've experienced up to this point, nobody can tell you that you don't deserve what you're going after. And vision-driven financial planning and coaching. So in order to be able to help fathers, not only with their finances, not only with their emotions, we have to walk the walk as well. And so we can't just say, use Dave Ramsey's forms and, you can learn how to budget and be debt free. If our finances are screwed up, that's no good. We're not helping the fathers. So a lot of what we do is not only just telling them, not only sharing it with them, but also showing them. Because historically, they've not had male figures to show them the way. And so if we show them the way, they can walk in our footpaths and adapt it to themselves and also show those that are coming after them.
Who don't have these things, you put them in front of someone, right? Like for me, for a while there, my finances weren't in order. I could share with them, hey, the importance of it, but let me connect you with these representatives from the Dead Air Credit Union who are gonna come in, they're gonna walk y'all through all this. They're the experts. Okay, don't listen to me. I got my credit score ain't that good, but I can tell you, and sometimes again, going back to what you were saying earlier, you were talking about the transparency, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even though I'm going to encourage you and guide you, but I may not have all the answers, and I'm not going to profess like I do, but I can get you connected to the folks that are going to give you the right answers and have that expertise in that area that they serve and represent. And I think that's really important, because I may not know it. I don't know, but I can connect you with the people who do. And I think that's key.
Absolutely. And so what is one practice, policy, or mindset you're ready to disrupt, reform, or transform in your work? Yes, sir.
consider that their mom and dad,
Mm-hmm.
young, coming up, they feel like their mom and dad.
And a lot of that comes from culture. Because if you've been raised where there was no father figure in your house, then you once again model what you've seen. And we know all the, data and research that proves that and backs that up. No, it's down that one. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
But I think one of the things that we try to disrupt is the social services norm of using. We always say we want you to go from mom and a policy to mom and dad. So many of the agencies that generally only serve mothers. I always tell them when they come in and say, I need help if they're a single mom, if not your first, or at least one of your first questions is not, where's the father? You're doing it wrong. So, you can't say, oh, I have a program for you that's going to take the place of, you're never going to take the place of a father with the program. So just take that out of your mindset. So you should really be moms and dads, and so, but, again, along with that, you have to have some resources for them to use. So they may say, we don't know how to deal with dads. You say, well, you know me now, you can reach out to me and we have some people that can help you with that. But I think just sometimes we get a little bit too complicated with it, past the whole, we're going to do this. Let's just get fathers in the room or even being acknowledged first a lot of times in some of these agencies. Then we can try to help them.
Absolutely. Y'all don't be shy. What you want to disrupt?
Me,
Mm-hmm.
my program manager. No, he's my program manager. My name is Vic, recovering addict, grateful believer in Jesus Christ, but also my case manager. I don't have a PhD in whatever he has a PhD on, but I do have a PhD on healing myself. That's what I bring to the table. I was locked up when I was 15 for murder. I got out at 21. I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. Fortunately for me, I found a boxing gym that helped me, gave me a purpose from the age of 21 to about 26. I tried to turn pro. I wasn't able to make it. I met a woman, I got married, and that's when my trauma came, right? Once I stopped, had my purpose, then I started, experimenting with drugs at the age of 30. We got divorced, and then I went on my own for about 10 years, and shortly after that, I went to rehab. Went to rehab, been in recovery for over 4 years now, been a case manager. And that's what I bring to the table as far as healing and what I've been able to do with my life. One thing that stands out to me, it takes a village, is what I've been writing here. I love coming to these conferences because we come in contact with boots on the ground, federal, state, and local individuals. And I like that because my first year coming to these conferences, I didn't know women were a huge part of these initiatives. I didn't know you guys are the main ones pushing these agendas. So coming in contact with you guys, I go back home inspired and motivated. And like I said, yeah, it takes a village. And one thing about the mom and the dad issue, which you mentioned earlier, when the women say, I have to be the mom, I have to be the dad. One thing that I've been able to implement myself about a year ago was meeting fathers where they're at, meeting others where they're at, right? Embracing where they're at. And when a woman comes to me, I'm the mom and dad, I do what I do with my daughter. I give her some history. Do you know why women are like that, right? We know women are like that because they don't have a choice sometimes. Why? Because their father, their husband, their boyfriend gets incarcerated, gets killed, right? It gets picked up by immigration. Now, who gotta be the mom and dad? That woman. So I bestowed upon them history, put them on game, like the kids say, and then let them. One thing about a case manager, I think case managers, we have to be careful in sounding like we're telling others what to do. Because once we start doing that, the individuals we're working with, they kind of back off a little bit. And so we just got to break them down with a history, give them a little insight, a little direction, and let God do the rest. You know, I think also as practitioners and workers, we trying to save the world, and we can't. And you know, it's just as much as we give others grace, we got to give ourselves grace as well. You know, so thank you.
Next slide.
Sir?
Next slide.
You want me to say more?
So key takeaways, a deeper understanding of intersectionality, a practical framework to disrupt, perform, and transform father engagement, and strategies to create trauma-informed, culturally grounded, and holistic support. Yes, ma'am.
About environment as one of the barriers when you ask that first question. I was thinking about the evaluations I would do with folks that were incarcerated in Western Maryland. Anyone who's from this area, Western Maryland is like honey boo boo country, right? And we had mostly Black men. As far as Philadelphia, out in the mountains and the hills, right? And so I'm thinking, okay, so when you get released, where are you going? That's the conversation I had. Where are you going? You going back to that same street? You going back to the same neighborhood? And what happened? So that is serious in terms of, you know, the learning environment. That's a huge barrier, I think, for movement. And for the prior slide, what I would want to disrupt in terms of mindset are irrational beliefs that are underlying that negative self-talk that it includes irrational beliefs. So this notion of perfectionism, for example.
Sure.
You know,
Right.
Nobody's perfect. I don't know anybody that walked the earth that's perfect except for Jesus Christ, right? So you have to kind of put it in context. I'm not perfect, you're not perfect. And using ourselves to make that point, right? The other mindset is this inability to delay gratification. We are all guilty of that, right? We got microwaves, right? So this is a microwave society. Everything is supposed to happen yesterday instead of being still and allowing things to unfold in due time, right? So perfectionism and delaying gratification would be two mindsets or inability to delay gratification would be two mindsets.
Perfectionism is one thing that a lot of our fathers, like as we're, you know, sharing our stories or, you know, giving them insights to things, a lot of them will say they didn't expect that from us. And my question is always, why not? You know, just because we're up here or just because we're in this field or we're doing the work doesn't mean we're any different than, you know, the fathers that we serve. The only difference I would say is we probably have a little bit more knowledge that we're trying to give them. But we put our pants on the same way. And as far as environment, our men's residential facility is actually in Kyle Canyon in the mountains. I don't know if any of y'all are familiar with Mount Charleston in Las Vegas, but it is about 25 miles outside of Las Vegas. And you literally have to drive up the dirt road into the mountains to get there. And so our fathers are typically there now for about 30 days. And a lot of them, once they leave the mountain, they're able to go to one of our transitional facilities. And so they're there with their peers and they're attending intensive outpatient. So it takes a little while for them to go back to any old environments. So we've basically developed a whole ecosystem to where we can help them for as long as we can within kind of this container. And so by the time they leave this container, so to speak. They've had a lot of knowledge and a lot of, experience on the other side, to where when they encounter some of the things that, they used to encounter, like high risk situations or places that they may have used, or, conflict with their co-parent, they now know how to handle it. So whereas before their reaction may have been to just fly off the handle, now they're able to breathe and actually have a civilized conversation.
So I think what you're talking about is personal development. The men gotta begin to develop themselves once they have gained some sobriety, or they are free. They're not dealing with the PO, the probation. Now they got a job. Now they can begin to develop themselves. A lot of the guys, they make it out a year, or they get a year in sobriety. They think they made it to the top of the mountain. They put the flag up there and they say, I made it. Little did they realize there's another mountain called personal development. You got to develop yourself. You got to work on the things that you are not good at. Your anger, your resentment, your impatience, whatever it might be. You got to start working on those things. How do we help the men? A good way to help the men with that is the mentorship. If you're not qualified as a woman to mentor a man, do what baseball scouts do. Be on the lookout. You see an individual walking out there and he's looking presentable and he's speaking the verbiage, hey, what's your name? How you doing? I got a couple of kids over here that need some mentorship. I try to do that with some of the women that I work with. I'll hook you up with somebody. I can't do it myself, but I know a sister that will, and that'll help the men understand what they're going through. I think support for me was huge, getting out of prison and transitioning from my drug lifestyle, because I used to, man, on the strip over in Vegas, man, I was the man. So I've transitioned from that lifestyle, right? I'm still healing. I'm still dealing with a lot, but the support is helping me a lot, so.
Yes, sir. So I want to add on to both of you guys. So the one of the main reasons, one of the causes is men don't have nobody to talk to. We don't have nobody to release our traumas. So I created 5 years ago, I created a roundtable for men. It's called the Brothers Brunch. So I created a roundtable for men to talk about our traumas. As little boys, when we grow up, when you fall on the ground, the first thing your father tell you to do, get up, stop crying, stop acting like a girl. Right. Get up, suck it up. We don't cry, you're a man. We bring this into our parenthood, we bring it to our marriages, we bring it to our friendships, because we don't got nobody to talk to. Women can talk about anything. Hey, my father used to molest me, and men, we're not going to talk about that because we got egos. We're like cars. As long as you put oil, just put some oil in me, baby, I'm good. I'm good, baby. I need some more oil. We need gas. We got a flat tire. Transmission is about to blow because we're not fixing ourselves. We don't have nobody to talk to. So I created a roundtable for men, and we talk about all our traumas. I have some gunshot victims, and I have 2 therapists. And that's another thing. Black men, it's okay to get therapy. Right. It's okay to get therapy. Right. And I'm speaking on myself. I lost my son. I came home. And my son was like flatlining. I'm literally on my way to the hospital and I got pulled over for an old warrant. They locked me up. My son died. I was with my son 3 weeks in the hospital for a brain tumor. Literally the day my son passed away, I got locked up. Mm-hmm. I have to live with that every day, to think like my son was like, I'm thinking like, my son's like, yo, where was my dad? And I've been in his life, even though I went to prison, I've always been in my son only calls me father. So the last moments of his life, I got locked up. Mm-hmm. I got bonded out like 2 days later. The judge let me go home to bury my son. Then I had to turn myself in 2 weeks after I buried my son. I had to go to Brooklyn, New York, turn myself in due time in New York. When I came home, so I'm on pause for a year and a half. Now I get back out, my son's not there. Now I gotta relive that trauma. And I tried to do it on my own. I ain't going to no therapist, it's a little, especially black boys. Don't be going to white people tell them what's going on in my house. I go tell them white people what's going on. I'm beating you, won't slap you, better not. So that was just, you know what I mean? I was trained that way. And I had to unlearn so much stuff that it's okay to talk to people. But 5 years, I went through darkness, man. I went through, like, I was wishing, I would see somebody smoking a cigarette. I would wish death on them. I'm like, why are you smoking a cigarette? My son died. You know, he was about to graduate high school. He was about to go to art school in New York. You know what I'm saying? But I had to finally unleash it. So anyway, I created a roundtable for men. And man, we talk about everything, man. We put everything on the line, we put everything on the table. It's a safe space, you know what I mean? I'm talking about, and the range is from 10 to, I had like a 72-year-old man there. You know what I'm saying? So, and we just like gotta unleash a lot of stuff. We had to unlearn so much stuff, but like I said, therapy is a big part of it also. Like I never wanted to go sit with nobody, because when my friend first died, I was in prison seeing a therapist, but speaking to someone an hour about how amazing my son was, but then going back to my cell, it angered me, because I'm like, damn, man, you know, I didn't even get to tell, you know, and now I want to tell my son how amazing he was, which I always did anyway, but I still want to have that conversation with him after I just finished speaking with him. Speaking to somebody about him, that would anger. So now I was like, nah, I ain't going to nobody. I'm not doing no therapy no more. That don't work. It don't work for me. But like I said, now I'm going. I started again like 2 years ago. It's going well, speaking to other men. And like I said, I always have a therapist on at these sessions that I do with the Brothers Brunch, because I don't want nobody to unleash what they've been through and then walk out that door like, oh man, I just told all these men my uncle molested me, man. Now where do I go from here? I have a therapist on to speak to them also. But anyway, that's all I wanted to say. So it's just about speaking. Like, we don't have nobody to talk to. That's a real main thing. You know what I mean? People don't know how to talk to, if they've been to addiction, they went through addiction, or, you know, I've been in 15 foster homes. I can't just probably talk to this man right here, because he don't know what I've been through. He ain't never been to prison. He ain't never shot nobody. So what conversations can me and him have if he had a great childhood and I had a bad childhood? So what are we talking about? You know what I mean? So it's the relation too. So that's a big part of it also.
Can I say something?
My condolences to you, brother.
Oh, yeah.
I think, you know, all these things that we do, I don't think it's gonna be a one-way street to a success. Just because we do all these things don't mean the individual is gonna be successful. What I like to tell the man that I work with is that it increases your chances, right? And where I come from, I'm taking those chances, right? If that hanging on with somebody that has the life that I'm striving to be a part of, then I'm gonna hang out with him, right? I think in reference to what you're talking about, group chats help a lot for me. I can't be everywhere. Virtual meetings help out a lot for me too. And the main thing is just continue to work on ourselves. You know, we're practitioners. Doesn't just because we're practitioners doesn't mean we're not working on ourselves. Quite the contrary, we need to keep working on ourselves day and night. Why? Because we're leading the way, right? Men and women, we're leading the way. Integrity is a big thing. That's why a lot of the guys they don't want to open up. You know, they hear you over there talking about somebody else. So integrity is a big thing. The values you spoke about, you know, explain to them the values and how they play a part in our behaviors is a big thing as well. Education about everything and anything, emotional intelligence. That's what has helped for me. Again, I've been out of prison since I was 15, broken home, physically abused, mentally abused, immigrant parents. And I still continue to struggle. I still have things that I got to pay from many years ago, but you know, they're catching up. You know, here I am. Thank God, you know.
And one of the things, touching on trauma, one of the things that I try to shift in the work that we do is trauma should be the expectation, not the exception. Because my personal belief is if you live in America, if you live in South America, if you live on this earth, you experience some type of trauma. It may not look like mine, but you've experienced some type of trauma. Yes, sir.
Lesser in mental health. or you're dealing with substance abuse, treatment. If you're dealing with men coming from the carceral setting, there's a lot of unspecified trauma and a lot of undiagnosed trauma and a lot of non-specific things. So even though I'm a QMHP, I'm not talking to people from that lens in these various settings, depending on what I'm doing. And there's a lot of, when it comes to disruption, there's a lot of IG psychology going on right now, where the buzzwords of psychology have been thrown around so much, but it's not relating to real behaviors and it's misapplied. And there's a tendency for a lot of people to latch on if they're not in a setting where they're dealing with a clinician or dealing with somebody who's a therapist or dealing with a healing circle. They will find the terminology and it becomes part of the excuse to excuse old behavior. And so realizing that just because people have been through trauma, everybody's not traumatized or everybody's not clinically diagnosed with PTSD.
Right.
But being able to walk that balance with people where it's okay to explore our own experiences. So in the concept of disruption, I was thinking about this, it's disrupt, reform, and transform. It's so simple and brilliant at the same time, but disrupting the concept that people are looking for somebody outside of themselves to come and fix it. And helping instill men and families and even the children with the inherent belief that you're who you've been waiting for to show up for you. That doesn't mean you already got all the answers, but you have a tremendous amount of lessons in your experience if you shift your lens.
Right.
And helping people shift that lens to extract those lessons doesn't always require a clinical approach, but it does require a common sense approach to realize that, it's a tightrope we walk in serving people, and what he said was so important. Everybody's path to healing won't look the same. So it's no cookie cutter concept that we can mass apply to reach these magical outcomes, but it's helping people realize where they are and emboldening that peer group to be able to learn and grow with each other. That was awesome.
So I did not give an introduction earlier. My apologies. Not going to give one now. But in addition to me being an alcohol and drug counselor, I'm also a peer recovery specialist supervisor. And so throughout my work, all the serving, I'm just going to say, I incorporate everything. And one of the things that I probably would say helps me the most is emergent coaching, because exactly what you said, individuals, or at least some of the individuals I work with, they already have the skills that it takes to overcome whatever it is that they're facing. They just need either that space so that they can emerge, or they just need the support, whatever that looks like. Absolutely. And so I think it's, vitally important that we not only expand our toolkits, but try different things, disrupt, transform. Absolutely. Mhm.
So before we leave, I think it's what time? 4:30. I want to tell you guys a quick story about an individual that I facilitated. I was case manager at a jail. We have a jail program. He was my participant, Hispanic young man, and prior to getting out, we can't tell them as a case manager or what direction you should take. We can only support whatever they want to do. And this individual wanted me to get him some tents so he can go back and live homeless again. And I said, I don't think we can get any tents for him, but I'll help you out with something else. Well, thank God he didn't get those tents, right? When he got out, I was able to get him into a sober living home. He maintained about 3 months sobriety there. The jail helped him with the 3 months rent, and he was able to maintain sobriety. He started going to meetings. He took at a vocational class. He took a vocational class, did the CDL, passed the CDL, got his CDL license, met up with his mother, overcame some obstacles due to drug use, some drug use situations where he could have relapsed. He got upset. He got discouraged. He took a job as a CDL. They actually didn't hire him, but they sent him on a hot shot all the way to New York, and he was gone for about a week. And he called me every day, and he was going through it every single day. He was going through it, wanting to quit, wanting to smoke weed, and not come back. Thank God he came back. Now he got a job. He's working. He's not doing the CDL, but he's holding on. He's still sober. And I think those stories are important. You know, we got to talk about those stories too, you know. So he's not here right now, but we're going to give him a clap. And I'm sure you guys have stories of yourselves, and that's what we're doing out here, man. Like I shared to you guys earlier, I went from slanging dope to slanging hope. And that's what we're all doing now, you know, giving others hope.
Any questions? Well, we definitely appreciate y'all.